Hello, greetings everybody. Welcome here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show that is dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back here with the mini-series that I'm running for this week. We did episode 1 yesterday. Today is episode 2, of course, and that makes sense, right? So I've chosen to do Emerson, Lake and Palmer today. And for those of you who haven't been following, what we're doing is I'm doing a mini-series on those big 6 prog bands. Now you'll find them, a lot of people mention them on YouTube. I've come to recently discover them. Sorry, I just realized I have my lunch still protruding from my face a bit. Anyways, I discovered them from watching a couple of different YouTube sites that I watch fairly regularly, and decided, you know what, I want to do something on this because this is a big part of what I do here. I'm a progressive rock is my favorite music. I do like other forms of music, of course, rock music, heavy metal. I've gotten into some punk, some new wave, even some classical music from the 50s and 60s. I don't mind that. There's lots of stuff I like. However, progressive rock is my baby, I guess if you want to call it that. And so it makes sense for me to do something on these big 6 rock bands. So what are these big 6 rock bands? So they were bands that I think pioneered and were the biggest influence in progressive rock initially, on the initial era. So most of them came out between 67 and 70, I think is the years, if I'm incorrect. All British bands, all 6 of them. So we got Jethro Tull, who we did yesterday. Today we're doing Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And then we also have King Crimson, Yes, Genesis, and Pink Floyd. I don't know if I'll do them in that order, but that's the order I'm giving them to you. So there were 6 of them. And I wanted to talk a little bit about each of them. And talk about members in the band, their best album, their last album, what their current status is, how many albums they made, that kind of stuff. So we'll start out, we're doing Emerson, Lake and Palmer today. This is not one of the progressive bands that I follow too closely. And it doesn't take rocket science here to figure out why I don't follow them. Nothing to do with their music. Their music is legendary among people in prog rock. They love them. For some reason I don't take to them too well, and I think it's because I tend to be a little bit more guitar oriented than I am keyboard oriented, or at very least I like to have both, and they don't do enough guitar. Seems to be pretty dominated by keyboards and lots of hard notes to get into. And this is another thing that eventually I'll do a series on this, on the most hard to penetrate bands, and this for me is one of them. I do have a couple of their albums. However, I don't have the 2 that you would need to show as props here. So the first one, probably considered their best album, I would think, would be Brain Salad Surgery. This is an album I've wanted to own, but either they haven't had it when I've been there, I haven't seen it, or I didn't like the price that they had, or whatever it was, but I just never got it yet. But it's definitely an album that I think you need to have if you're going to get into this band, because I think it's their best album. Their last album, which was released in 1994 on the hot seat. I don't know a thing about this album. It was their last one. So it's been almost 30 years since they've done anything, and they're currently probably never going to do anything because there's only one surviving member now, and that's Carl Palmer. They're also a bit strange in that they're a 3-piece, and all these other bands are more or less 4 or 5-piece bands. I think they're all pretty much 5, well, other than Pink Floyd, they're all 5-piece bands. So guitar is not a prominent instrument in this band, although Greg Lake, of course, does play guitar on the albums. But I think they're more keyboard dominated than anything else, and very bombastic. Lots of absolutely incredible noises. Not too far off from Pink Floyd in that respect. They do like to make their noises. But anyways, The other thing is that their classic era was from 1970 to 77. You know, if some people think it went on a little longer, let me know. But that to me seems to be the classic era of this band. They made 10 albums in their studio discography, which is the only thing I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about live albums because a lot of bands seem to put out a live album every 3 or 4 months, almost, because it's easy to do. You're touring, tape it, put it out, make some money off of it. It makes sense, perfect sense. So their current status is, to me, they're finished, they're retired. There's only one of them left. In all likelihood, you will not hear anything from these guys again. Maybe they might come out, maybe they have some stuff in the vault and Carl Palmer might decide, or the record company might decide, let's put out this album, let's make an album of Emerson, Lake and Palmer stuff that's not been heard before, that's in the vault. That could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but it could happen. But as far as them recording new stuff, that's not going to happen, because Greg Lake and Keith Emerson are both deceased now. So to me, this band is also different in the fact that they've only had 3 members. Most of these prog bands have a list like this, endless. An endless list of people who've played with the band. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, of course, don't fit into that. They only have the 3 members, Keith Emerson, Greg Lake, Carl Palmer, and that's it. So this, to me, is a band that, you know, maybe when the record companies and the mass media started saying that this is too much excess, it's too pompous, it's too overblown, this was probably the band they were thinking about, or one of those bands they were thinking about, and probably the leader of that, I think, in that pompous way. You know, you've seen some of the antics of Keith Emerson jumping on his keyboards and making all kinds of wacky noises. Great keyboards, but I can see why mainstream might have a hard time with that. I don't personally have a hard time with Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I think their music's great. It's just not music that I've gotten into yet. Now, I did say that about Gentle Giant. I think these guys are probably on par with Gentle Giant in the penetration department. Hard to penetrate. It may take some time, and I've not been overly motivated to go there yet, so at some point I will go over there. Maybe as I find more albums. I got a couple of them now, so if I get 2 or 3 more, maybe I'll say, you know what, I got to spend some time on this, and I will. So there you have it, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They are the one of the big 6, a band that was huge in their time. When they first came out, they were huge. I think they might have been considered the biggest progressive rock band at that point in time, when they were in their first 3 or 4 albums, before Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd kind of took off. But definitely initially, I think they were the prog kings at the beginning. And you know, some people would say King Crimson, but King Crimson never kind of reached that plateau, that next plateau. But definitely Emerson, Lake and Palmer reached it, but they also overblew it, almost shot past the mark, I guess. But still, they've got some great stuff. That Brain Salad Surgery, I think, is one of the premium albums out there for this genre of music. So anyways, I've said my part about Emerson, Lake and Palmer today. I think they're a great band. I just haven't gone that distance yet. And there's some other prog bands I haven't gone that way. Mostly the American ones, I have a hard time digesting their stuff. Kansas being the most notable, of course, but it's only a matter of time. Some of this stuff will grow on me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you got any comments about Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or about Brain Salad Surgery, or even their last album, or anything about the members of the band, Keith Emerson and Greg Lake, having passed. I think they passed in the same year too, if I'm correct. So let me know what you think, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning with another of the big 6. Take care.